Oh, I'm sorry.
Cold.
This is our journey. We're healing together.
Welcome back to an official episode of Here Together, Healing Together. This, I guess, will be episode 5, picking up from where we left off in 2021. Wow, it's been so long. So last episode, we just kind of recapped how we were able to land the Good Morning America feature. And so thank you for your support on that, the kind words, the shade, whatever it may be. We thank you for it all. And so today's episode, we are talking about boundaries. What boundaries are, what they look like, what they sound like, and kind of what our boundaries have been, and I guess setting some new ones moving forward, huh?
Oh, okay.
So, Mom, just like offer it, what would you say, what do you think boundaries are? What would be your definition of a boundary?
Intrusion on someone's privacy or their space.
Well, yeah, that would be a violation of a boundary.
Okay.
So what is just a boundary? When you hear boundary.
Yeah, this is kind of like new for,
Yeah.
this boundary thing is kind of like new for our parents because we didn't know nothing about no boundaries.
Right. Sorry for y'all.
Yeah, we learning a lot from y'all. But that's really a hard question to answer.
Okay.
But I guess I would say after communicating with someone what you don't want or you don't like or you don't appreciate, and they continue to do it anyway. Is that about right?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, yes. But just in layman terms, boundaries are limits or rules that we give ourselves within relationships. So a boundary is something that we both have to communicate and we have to honor for ourselves. So it's for both people involved in the relationship. But you have to be the one to honor it. So thinking about like, hey, I asked you not to fry chicken in the house because the house is so small, right? So I don't like the smell of the chicken. I don't like the lasting smell of frying chicken, so don't fry it in my house, right? This is just an example. If I were to fry chicken Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's clearly a violation of your boundary because you've already stated I don't like the smell, therefore don't fry the chicken in my house. Okay. So boundaries are the limits that we give both ourselves and other people. And so in terms of relationship, those would be personal boundaries. And so in speaking of personal boundaries, there are 3 different types or categories of boundaries. So you have rigid, porous, and healthy boundaries. And a lot of your generation has very rigid boundaries, meaning y'all keep people at a distance. You're a little passive aggressive. When someone does something wrong, it's just like, okay. So you feel some kind of way, but you don't say anything. That's a rigid boundary.
That's a fair assessment.
Porous boundaries may be millennials, where we overshare, where we just word vomit, possibly. A lot just open, just out there,
Whatever come up, come out.
Yeah, okay. And then you have healthy boundaries, where it's a great balance of both rigid and porous, because some situations or settings don't call for you to be rigid. Some do call for you to be rigid. Some don't call for you to be porous. Some do. So, healthy boundary is a good balance of both.
Okay.
So, any thoughts on those so far?
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, it's really, I'm not being funny, but this is kind of like, for me, I can't speak for, my community, but for me, this is a learning experience because we really did not, we weren't taught to have boundaries in my generation. And so in your generation, and trying to deal with it with younger people, it's like, what are you talking about, boundary? What is that? So I think the first step to the boundary process is really good. It's been extremely helpful. I think. You think?
I think so too.
Yeah. So the only question I have, sometimes I question, like, okay, I hit a boundary, but I really don't know, like, what that boundary. You know what I mean? Like, I know to stop, but I don't know what I did, what boundary, so that I won't do it again.
I would agree with that. I think we've kept it at a very surface level of boundary. And for those who don't know, Mom, tell them about tell them about what code is.
Are you really?
I'm not texting. No, these are my notes.
That's okay.
These are the notes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Code. Jeez Louise. And it was just doing something funny. I had to shut it down.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay. So what's code?
Edit this right. Oh.
What's code?
Code is a word that we use when one of us, we feel like one of us is imposing on our boundaries. So if that is the case, we just say code. And then what we do is there's no talk. We just say, okay. And then we move on to something else. That conversation ends.
And so what I'm hearing you say now is that you would like to take it a step further in having a conversation that extends from the code. Like, okay, you said code, but why?
Right.
Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Just so that for informational, it's not like I'm prying or trying to be argumentative, but I'm trying to reprogram myself so that I know when if you say code and I ask why, it is not to be combative. It is just for information so that I know moving forward that is why that's a code and why I should not do that.
Okay, I understand. Well, has there been something that you were like, why? More recently?
No, because I don't think we've had to use code too much here recently. So it must be working.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we haven't had to use it here lately.
Okay, well, any new boundaries of yours that I should be aware of and
No.
that you're willing to share? Okay, no.
How about you?
No, I mean, I think you don't remember my boundaries. Because we definitely set these. But I think the ones that I've shared with you previously are still intact. If I had to add one, it would be you already know, with like you as my like mentor, I guess. Like, let me come to you for that.
Yes.
Don't just be like, oh, I did this, this. It's like, mine.
Yes.
You know, let me come to you with that, because I'm going to come to you. Like, who else am I going to go to? So you have to have trust that if she needs me, she will come to me. And I feel like you know that on, like, personal stuff, but when it comes to, like, professional things, it's more like...
Yeah. And that's right. And I'm glad you said that, because on a professional level, it's totally different. On a professional level, as a mentor and as a coach, it turns a little bit. And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a difference. I'm not your mom. I'm not in mom mode when I'm coaching you and I'm mentoring you. And so...
Okay. But...
So I'm just saying that, you know, and a lot of my students will tell you that I coach. They will, and it's a difference, and it's a thin line when you got to be coachable, and you've got to trust your coach. And so it's, I need you to understand that when I'm in that mode, it's not my mode.
Okay. Respect and understood. Yeah. Well, that's how you set a boundary. Just have the conversation. Just rip the Band-Aid off and have the conversation. Ask the child, ask the parent, well, what are your boundaries in this age or this stage in life? Because it may have been a boundary 2 years ago, like in our case, may still be a boundary or may not be a boundary. And so it's important to have the continue the conversation. So yes, that's how you set a boundary. So I understand if I come to you as mom, it's different than coming to you as mentor.
Right.
And for me, I have to understand which one is more valuable to me in this season of life.
Right. Right. And you have to do some soul searching to say, you know, do I really need my mom to be my mentor?
Mm-hmm. True.
You know, because it is difficult. Yeah. It really is difficult trying to, to navigate the two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I did have some notes, even though Mom thought I was texting, darling. The types of boundaries, so there are a few. You have physical, and I think I mentioned these earlier: physical, emotional, verbal, time, work, spiritual, financial, and sexual. And so when you think about setting some of these boundaries, you also have to think about honoring these boundaries. So for an example, if your emotional boundary with your partner or your parent is like, hey, I don't feel comfortable talking about that situation, then that's the boundary. It's you communicating that I don't want to talk about something because it makes me feel like da 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 da, and I would appreciate it if you don't bring it up. That's a boundary. That's stating the boundary, but then you also have to honor the boundary, which means if you have communicated that to partner or parent, then you are not bringing up that thing to partner or parent either, because it goes both ways. So if you're telling them we're not talking about this, I don't feel comfortable about it, then don't think that you can dump on them either. So that's just an example of an emotional boundary. So Mom, let's test you. Give me an example of like what would be a work boundary or a financial boundary?
A few moments later.
So?
Okay, a work commitment. I'm asked to stay or work on a project longer than I could on a specific day or specific week, and so I would have to gracefully be able to say, I'm sorry, I cannot commit to this because it's going to take away for something that I've already committed to, and I will not be able to accommodate that request.
Very good. And that's the boundary. That's you stating it and also honoring it for yourself. Just like yesterday, I had a client who was late. They did make me aware of it maybe like 5 minutes into the session via email, and I said, thank you. I will still have to end at 7:50 at the latest. Because that's my boundary. I'm not staying to work till 8. Mm-hmm. So that's my boundary. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good example. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, so these are boundaries, how they are implemented in your lives, things that you can say. And as always, a great resource is the Nidra Tawwab Glover book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. I remember we used that for our classes. Mm-hmm. It's a really good resource for you all to check out. She speaks about what emotions you may feel with setting boundaries. Guilt is one. Mm-hmm. Like Mom, like you would experience like mm-hmm. setting boundaries with your parents. There probably would be some guilt because it hasn't mm-hmm. been something that you are accustomed mm-hmm. to doing.
That actually happened to me, yeah. And it was, and I still do feel guilty sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a normal emotion to setting boundaries too, mm-hmm. because it's like you feel like you're cutting something off, mm-hmm. or you aren't honoring your mother or father mm-hmm. or family member. Mm-hmm. But that's how we fall into people pleasing, which could be another episode. But Nidra Tawwab's book is really good for that. Set Boundaries, Find Peace. It's a good resource. Anything else you want to add?
No, just to people of my generations, to moms, this is very important and very real to our adult children. They are holding us accountable, and it was very difficult for me to set boundaries with my child, and it's still kind of difficult to do that, but I've learned that it's important to do, because this is about us too, and the next chapter is about lives. So boundaries can't just be one-sided. It's got to be two-sided. and it's got to work both ways.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And same for us millennials and adult children of any age. Ask your parents what their boundaries are as well. Can't just be your way or no way. So really honor the relationship. All right. Well,
All right.
I guess that's it.
I guess that's it.
Until next time, you all, be well, love well. Bye.
Bye.